Welcome to Integrated Insights with ICCG. For more than 30 years, our team has partnered with small business owners to prepare for and navigate the business transaction process. Pull up a chair as we share stories and insights from our experience on all sides of the M&A table. Welcome back to another episode of Integrated Insights. My name is Michael Hefner. I'm your host today. I'm joined by the founders of ICCG, Grant McQuilkin and Dave Parker. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Today, we're going to talk about generational transitions. So when family when it's a family-owned business, founder-owned, and they don't want to just sell outside of the family, but they want to keep the business in the family. What does that look like to transition? And some of these business owners, this is a lot of what we work with, family-owned and initial founders. But a lot of times those families, they may think, hey, if we're keeping it in the family, why do we need to bring in a third party? Why do we need to bring someone else? We can figure this out. So what would y'all say to business owners that feel that way?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason why we get brought in, and it's not the right reason, but the biggest reason why we get brought in is, hey, I want to be fair to my kids, but I also need to be fair to myself. In other words, I'm going to withdraw from the business, and this is my biggest asset. And so how much do I need to make them pay me? I don't want to ask for too much, but I don't want to ask for too little. And before long, Dave and I are happy to have that conversation with business owners, but before long, we get to find out that there's a sibling that's not in the business that they want to take care of, that there are concerns from one spouse. I won't say normally which one it is. There's concerns about one of the spouses that the son or the daughter is not capable of running the business, and the other spouse is for sure you've got to sell the business to that particular kid who for sure is going to be successful, and they trust them with the business. And so there's a whole lot of questions in there that they really do have. But what brings us to the table generally is, hey, how much is my business? How do I do this practically? But how much do I need to charge them?
Yeah, I would say that if you're thinking about transferring that business down to the next generation in some form or fashion, whether it's by sale or transferring, however you want to do that, you're in a minority that's really, really fortunate, because so many of the people we deal with, that's not the case. And I don't know how many business owners we sat with. They're going, we have kids, but no one wants the business. And there's often that's not really bad. It could be the best choice they ever made, right? But oftentimes they don't know what maybe a great business their mom and dad have built, and because things have been kept quiet, kind of under the table as far as finances and things like that. So the kids don't grow up knowing that. In other situations, we find out where the kids have grown up in the business. It was fascinating. I was actually getting something from my homemate. I'll go ahead and tell you, it's a stair nose. When you're putting in stairs, you've got like this overlap right on the stairs. And we had a contractor come in and finish all the flooring, putting in this cork flooring we had put in. He got the stairwell and he left. We never saw him again. We still don't know what happened to him. So that's a whole different story. That's how not to do business. Now, on to this. Through a long series of events, I'm trying to find somebody who I heard that they could actually form your cork flooring or laminate flooring, whatever it is, into this really hard stair nose that won't break off, when you step on it and everything. So I found it. And so I went down and met I walk in, this young man he looks really young. And I find out, I start questioning him about it. And he says, oh yeah, my dad and we kind of developed this whole system, or my dad really did, he's an old time flooring guy. And he developed this whole system on how you take and mold these and it's undergirded with metal and everything. And it was fascinating. And he was talking about, he said, yeah, I'm learning the business because I'm going to take over from my dad someday. And he was great because he was now going, well, we're going to do more than stair domes. We're going to bring in flooring as a whole. We're going to open a showroom. And I saw this vision. And he was like, yeah, my dad would do it this way, but we're not going to do it that way anymore. That just kind of shows you don't find that very often. And that was really refreshing to me. But when you find a business and they want to pass it down, we really, really urge you to make sure you just turn over all the rocks and find out what's there. Because if you don't, whatever's under there is going to come crawling out at some time and it might bite you. And so find out now, who's capable and who's not capable, and maybe they can be trained up. There's lots of ways around some of the challenges you might run into. But, we really, really like to see families that can pass that generationally down to the next generation. Sorry, that was a long story, but I'm always fascinated when I see, sons or daughters working with their parents in their business and learning it and getting excited about it. You don't see that very often.
So how much during the business transaction process is it a consideration of what you just talked about? Hey, my son wants to take it over, but he's going to do things a lot differently than me. Does that just affect the decision itself, or are there things that can play into the actual business transaction, things that we can do, conversations that we can be part of to help with that? What does that look like?
Yeah, we work with business owners all the time, and part of our job is to not necessarily advocate for the kids, but it is to give a little bit of sense of reality that, hey, this is going to come to an end at some point. If you sell it to a third party, they're going to do things differently. And they're going to change. They're going to make changes no matter what they say. They're going to make changes that they believe are going to be successful. And so it's unrealistic to believe that your son or daughter is not going to change things. In fact, a lot of frustration is there in the kids' eyes, in the next generation's eyes, much like there is in management. And a lot of times the frustration is more so in kids because they really don't feel the freedom to go elsewhere. Whereas management can say, well, Dave's not letting me do what I want to do, and so I'm just going to go and work for a competitor. Whereas family, it's a little bit different, because if they did that, it changes Sunday at the lake, right? And so it's just not. It's not an easy discussion. And so sometimes Dave and I particularly, I'm not going to say we enjoy this, but we enjoy the result that can come from the hard conversations when we get to play the adult in the room, where we kind of lay out exactly.
We often don't get to play that role.
Yeah. I mean, in the middle of it, it's never pleasant, but we've seen the beauty of it, to where at the end of the day, the business has been transitioned to the next generation, and the parents are happy they've accomplished their goals personally, and they can sit back and watch their kids and hopefully succeed. There are times when they don't, but they get to play advisor when they're invited back in, and it's a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think just the value, like you said, of having that third party in the room, the experienced third party to be able to say, like, no, like you can't expect that. I mean, when you just started talking there, you said, hey, it's not realistic to expect that they're not going to change something, right? When the fact of the matter is, a lot of these founders that we meet and that we help, they've been doing this same business for 30 to 50 years. It's all they know. Why should it change? This is the way I did it, right?
We don't need the internet.
I think we can help with that, right? Because, Grant and I have been business partners for almost 30 years, and we've owned a dozen businesses in our portfolio through the years, and at least. And, we ran into that, when we did our early days was in the towing and recovery business. And we did some roll ups in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And, it was, we walked in, and we were that generation who was going to bring the internet, so to speak, the computer into the dispatch room. That had always been manual phones, paper on a spindle kind of thing. And so we've seen that. And I would say, we've also what we started seeing later in our time in that industry is we got to know a lot of the older business owners that had owned their companies for decades. We saw their kids coming in and start putting in all these different tools, with technology that was really, really helpful. That, the parents were just like, we're gone. We can't do it.
Efficiencies.
But the
Task
business
management,
kept rolling.
right?
Yeah, and the business really did well. And honestly, Grant, we look at it, you and I aren't we're not the ones who said, hey, let's do a podcast.
Yeah.
We've got a different generation working in our office who said, you guys need to do a podcast, and we kind of kicking and screaming into this. So this happens on all different levels. It's just like when it gets with family, it gets real close, right? And people start thinking it's about them rather than about the business. And so, I think that's where an intermediary really helps. Because honestly, at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to help. We love family. We have families, we have grandkids. We love to be with our families. We think the importance of family in our world today is a huge win. And I think that whatever we can do to help preserve that, but it doesn't help when families are, knocking heads with each other and they go to the lake together on Sundays, as Grant says, or they're sitting around the dinner table at Thanksgiving. They can't, they need to be family and preserve that business and family time. And I think we can help them do that.
Yeah, I would just add one last thing, and that is a soapbox of mine. And that is, I've been around, when I ran a CPA firm, I was around so many clients that rather than tackle this issue, they ignored it. And it was just sort of the easy option. And it landed in a train wreck where they took more and more time off, discouraged the kids because they couldn't make any changes. And it just, the business suffered. And then they died. And now what? So now the business goes to all the kids, not just the kids who are in the business, or it just doesn't, it's not the way to be a good steward of the asset that you have in the business. And so you have to deal with it. You cannot just let it go just because you're not willing to take it on from a standpoint because of the challenges. And again, we always say business owners are smart. They just may not have all the tools to get the job. And so we can provide those tools. We can tell you how to take care of a kid who's not in the business with some sort of wealth replacement trust. But you can't fund that trust with insurance when you're 80 years old. You're going to have to start when you're 60 or 50, and then it's cheaper. And so the point is that the sooner you start dealing with those eventualities that are literally eventualities, because at some point you're going to die, and that business is going to go to your heirs. And so script it the way that you want, using the expertise of advisors who can help you get it done.
So last question, thinking about that business owner you just described that's just trying to avoid the conversation, or the business owner that is just starting to think about, hey, maybe I do transfer it at some point. What advice would you give to those business owners as they're just starting the conversation? What are some of those initial steps to kind of start them on the right path?
Pull somebody else in that's a third party, that's trusted, that knows what they're talking about. Pull somebody in that can listen to everybody. And, wisdom's a wonderful thing, but sometimes we need that wisdom from other people to speak that into our lives, right? And so whenever I've made a major change in my life, I've always sought the wisdom of other people. And other times when I just wanted to do it my way, I wouldn't seek that wisdom. And so I guarantee you the times that I sought the wisdom, things did go a lot better. Things went a lot more smoothly. And family's the same way. Just bring somebody in that knows what they're talking about, that can think through all the different ramifications, think through the areas you may not have thought about it, and let them help you plan. It's part of the estate planning process in one way, just a little advance.
Yeah, there's a proverb that's so appropriate. If you isolate, you quarrel against all sound wisdom, right? And so, getting the right people in the room is important. But I think understanding what you want. Most of the time, we're dealing with family businesses. We're dealing with a married couple, and sometimes what they want is two different things. And so we'll deal with one of the spouses, and then we find out, well, okay, we've got the goals and we can run with this, but they aren't the same goals as the other spouse. And so, just knowing that there's just more than you involved, and get your spouse on the same page, and coming up with, okay, perfect world, what do I want to happen? And then pull in advisors and say, okay, how do we get this done?
Well, hey, that's all the time that we have for today. But Dave, Grant, thanks for joining me. We'll see you guys again next time. And that wraps up another episode of Integrated Insights with ICCG. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories from our team. We love hearing from our listeners. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please send us an email in the show notes. For more information about ICCG, please check us out on our website or follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Until next time, there's always a seat at our table.